Where are we and how did we get here? You notice there's a little bit of unraveling there. New body of thought. Also, back in that 1997 era, a New York Times bestseller hit the newsstand. Absolutely incredible. It was these sociologists that, once again, looking back at history and trying to make some rhyme or reason of it. And the name of the book is The Fourth Turning. Bestseller 1998, I believe it was published in late 97. What they espouse is that of generational cycles. The idea is that roughly every 80 to 100 years, there is some seminal event, cataclysmic crisis level event that happens. And as a result, society, people have to pull together, foregoing self-interest in order for the collective so that the problem can be solved. As they pull together, solve the problem, they create mutually agreed upon, not always necessarily written, but mutually agreed upon social rules by which to abide by. As they proceed past this crisis, then they proceed to have children. And the next generation grows up and they find themselves playing to the rules that were created by their parents and their generation. They don't necessarily agree. And as a result, they rebel. And the fabric that was woven during that crisis period in the aftermath now starts to fray as the rebellion starts to take place. And those rules, that foundation on which the society is built, begins to get a little bit weaker. So think of the greatest generation referred to, the baby boomers in there for a little bit before, who went through the Great Depression and World War II crisis. They all pull together, self-sacrifice. Many of them go off to war, sacrificing their life. Come back, create these rules. They have kids. And guess what? Those kids turn into the 60s, into the baby boomers and the flower children and the hippies of the 60s. And those rebel. And whereas the parents pulled together, self-sacrifice, these tend to rebel and pull apart. And actually, instead of collectivizing, try to individualize. So if you know anything about the 70s, it was all about finding yourself. And it was very much a flip to the previous. The baby boomers' parents, went through the greatest generation. They self-sacrificed. They were doting on their kids and took care of their kids. All these TV shows were all about Leave It to Beaver and My Father, all these, family, very well. Then their kids, the hippies, and they go, hey, wait a second, man, my parents were smothering me. Forget it, man. They have kids, and guess what? They just leave them alone. And my generation, grows up in that period, and it's like, your folks are, they just check you out at the beginning of the day and say, hey, we'll see you tonight. Well, guess what? We go another generation, and then they flip back, and then my generation, and I tail end of the baby boomers, beginning of Gen X, I think. We say, hey, you know what? My parents were never there. I'm going to be a helicopter parent. So you guys are the byproduct of my generation reacting to our parents. And so odds are pretty good when you're growing up, you're going to say, hey, wait a second, my parents were all over me. They tracked me everywhere I went. And you're going to say, hey, you know what? I trust you, just go, But my point is that these generations tend to alternate, but yet mirror the previous. So oftentimes grandparents and grandchildren tend to relate. The point is, as that hippie generation goes, then the social rules become more and more fraying. And we get to the fourth turning. So there are these four, periods, roughly 18 to 25 years in length. And at the fourth period, this fourth turning, at this point, the rules have been disintegrated. And they call it the unraveling. And so all the rules that were established, that were true, that were, are now gone. And so now nobody knows what. Anything goes. And that's, I think, a byproduct of what you see with relative humanism, where basically there is no truth. My truth is my truth. Your truth is your truth. And, when you think about that, that means there's just no truth, right? Um, we'll get into that some other day. But my point is you get a lot of lost people that are just have no idea what's going on, and because there's no truth, right? And what happens then is you have this once in every 4 generations, 80 to 100 years, where you have this seminal event, this crisis, and causing the people once again at the point they're at now. And think about how me-oriented our society is. Everybody has their entitlements, their rights, and everybody's about me. This next period, and the crazy thing is, over 10 years now, I've been talking about this, and it's been interesting to now get students from the recent past, sending me notes saying, "Wow, yeah, you're right. Wow, is this, this is it." I don't know. I don't know if this is that seminal event, because remember there was a flu epidemic in 1918, right? That wasn't the seminal event for that period. It was, the Great Depression. It was World War II. So I don't know. I'm still holding off on whether this, COVID-19 is our seminal event, but you can certainly see that it is the straw that's stirring this change. So once again, this concept. So a part of this is how, and I often think of, individually, we can be incredibly intelligent and smart. You take one person, and just in our class, there's some just absolute mind-blowingly smart people. You collectivize, you put us together, and we're idiots. In groups, we don't think intellectually, we think emotionally. And we get caught up in social mood, and moods ebb and flow throughout time. And I would caution you to be careful that you don't get caught up and swept away with the mood, because in extreme times, you can do some very silly and disturbing things. And you might think, oh, okay, no, never me, right? But history says otherwise. So be careful. And this idea of being able to be a courageous contrarian, right? I think of it this way. If you've ever been to Terramar is down, the beach here. Don't we live in an awesome place? It's so awesome. Terramar is this rock reef, and it's a gorgeous beach, right? When the tide goes out, you see the rock reef, you see these tide pools and all this incredible sea life. It's awesome. Storms have come, storms have gone. Sand has come in, sand has left, but that rock reef remains the same. It stays there. I encourage you, and I know it's counter to society to believe there is absolute truth. I encourage you, seek and find absolute truth, because you will be like that rock reef where the storms will come and go, but you will remain firm. Been thinking of it in this sense that, when you see a swimmer who's swimming laps, to me, truth is like having that flip turn at the end of one lane or one lap and being able to solidly push off the side of that pool and get a really good push. Think about somebody who doesn't have that wall. They come down. A, they don't know where to turn. B, when they go to push, there's nothing there to push against, and they oftentimes lose their balance, become confused. I really encourage you. Otherwise, social mood will probably have a bigger impact on you. So with that in mind, talking about social mood, how about this? You talk about the epitome of social mood. How about this? This, my friends, is the stock market. This is the NASDAQ over the last roughly a little bit less than 20 years. But if you notice the end part there, you see the far right side. I just think it's just so beautiful, because this is really happening right now. And I'm taping this just the week before, but I really think the week preceding school is probably going to be a pretty big time. Maybe one we look back at for quite some time as maybe being the extreme in social mood, at least in the sense of markets. What you're seeing here, look at that thing. It's just, for those of you that aren't math students, that's what's known as a parabola. That parabolic is not necessarily a good thing, because it usually is followed by something that's a little bit sharper in the other direction. My point is this, there is a lot of emotional, a lot of psychology in our current time period. You have people that, remember we talked about incentives, right? people who basically are getting paid more than when they were working and have extra money. You have people who get mailed a $1,200 check at the very same time that many of these same people, billions of dollars worth, who formerly bet on lots of professional sports, now have no professional sports. Take guess what some of them are doing with a lot of that money. Yeah, they're not gambling on sports. They said, hey, you know what? I like Tesla. I like gold. I like anything. I mean, look at Apple, look at Google. All these things are going parabolic. If I showed you a graph of any of those, they're all going the same direction. It's pretty insane. But my point is this, is that when everybody's doing it, and I venture to say maybe even you, within the last COVID period or maybe the last year, have opened up a Robinhood account and have put a little bit of money in. I venture to say that some of you have, and maybe your parents have done quite a bit. My point is this, is everybody is in. You have people much maybe like yourself who never even thought about it, who have now gotten in. You have these sports gamblers who have gotten in a big way. And as a result, it has gotten very emotional and lots of psychology. And it's been said that the stock market in the short run is a voting machine. In the long run, it's a weighing machine. What does that mean? In the short run, it's a weighing machine. In the short run, it's a voting machine. In the long run, it's a weighing machine. It means that in the short run, it's very emotional and people are just voting. It's like, oh, whatever, yeah. In the long run, though, truth tends to hold out. If something is of value, if somebody, Microsoft's still there, they're still good ideas, still doing stuff, guess what? It's still going up. Amazon, all these things, right? So in the long run, it's a weighing machine, but in the short run, it's a voting machine. And that's why you get markets like this. I mean, that's just an insane, we'll look back. And like I said, I believe the week before school, so you'll have some time to real time look in the rearview mirror. Maybe. I mean, I'm a little school teacher. I know zero. All right, I'm up front. I know nothing. But it's quite possible that we might look back for quite a while at this, this little period here in August and say, wow, it was kind of nuts.